Hello everyone, in a departure from my usual videos, I'm going to talk about this guitar here. So it's kind of my first product review / discussion. So this is the Squier Classic Vibe 50s guitar, and everyone says that these are fabulous value for money. So we're going to look at whether that's true. I'm going to show you some clips of it and talk about what I did with this guitar to make a few little tweaks to it. So how did I get this guitar? Well, I went to Guitar in Epsom here in the UK with the intention of buying something far more expensive that would cover all my gigging needs. And I was trying things like Suhrs, very, very nice guitars, but also very expensive. I tried Fenders as well. Some were very good, some not so good, bit of a mixed bag. And then I was handed this second-hand Classic Vibe 50s guitar. And it was £240. And I suppose I'm quite tight with money, so I thought, well, that strikes a chord with me, if you forgive the pun. So I tried it and I was instantly really impressed by the sound of it. The pickups are actually really good. So that's the first thing I'd say. If you want a Strat sound, you don't need to modify the pickups in this. I did have a little play around with humbuckers and things in a different pick guard, but actually in the end I came back to these because I really like them. A few other things though. It was quite nice to play, but it had a very sticky, glossy neck, and that's not really my bag. The trem was not great. I couldn't see anything else wrong with the guitar, so I took a punt. I bought the guitar, got it home, had some fun with it, and then after about 2 weeks, the volume pot started to cut out. So I opened the guitar up and found that the pots were really cheap, the wiring was rubbish. So I did change that. I left the original switch in, that was fine, but all the pots are now new, the wiring is also new. The problem I had with the trem was you had to practically stand on it to get it to do anything. And plus the saddles were sort of stabbing my hand because of the little grub screws. So what I did was I got hold of a cheap sustain block for £20 I think and put that in the back, which enabled me to have a push-in trem arm. And weirdly that seemed to change everything about the feel of the trem. It became a lot looser. And it's very stable tuning as well. I changed the saddles for these string savers, which stops that digging in feeling. I did try changing the whole trem, but it's surprisingly hard with this guitar because the neck is narrow, therefore the bridge is narrow, and therefore it's getting the screw holes to line up is difficult. You can do it if you're happy to make modifications and drill into your guitar. I didn't want to do that, so I left it. The other thing is I don't like glossy necks because I find them quite sticky. So what I did was I sanded this down, and it took a minute to do the back of the neck. 30 seconds with 400 grit sandpaper, 30 seconds with 1200 grit sandpaper, maybe a bit more time actually just fine-tuning the edges here. And the more difficult bit was doing the front between the frets. So I masked off the frets with masking tape and then just used 1200 grit in the spaces between. And it's now super smooth and slick. Sticky. Not sticky. Sticky. Not sticky. So it's now a really nice guitar to play. The pickups are great, the electrics are great, didn't cost me a lot. I did actually take this guitar with some other guitars to a luthier and had it fret leveled, which is very expensive, and I'm not saying I recommend that necessarily on a guitar this cheap, but I had guitars there anyway, so I said, while you're doing that, can you do this one as well? Did it need fret leveling? It kind of did. It had a few dead spots. So my overall thoughts on this guitar is that it sounds great. If you're a bedroom player, this is all you need really for that Strat sound. It's brilliant. If you're a gigging musician, try first, because what you pay for with a guitar when you spend a lot of money is you pay for consistency. These are going to be less consistent. So you might get a really good one that's gig ready. However, I doubt very much you'll get on with the trem as it was, because even if it's a really good specimen, you're going to find those grub screws very annoying on the fingers, on the hand, sorry. The other thing is, if you like glossy necks, great. If not, it's quite an easy job to sand down. I don't think you need to change the pickups unless you have another preference. But the thing is, if you modify a guitar like this too much, you start to get into the same territory as the Fender Player series, which are really good guitars and very good value. So you've got to make a judgment call there whether it's worth it. If you can get one of these second hand, really cheap, then they are great value. Brand new, I think at the moment they're about £350 here in the UK, which is still really good value, provided you don't have to do too much to it. So try before you buy. Now, is it giggable? Yes, I did a gig last night. I did a dep gig for a band called Atonic, who were very good, very tight and poppy and funky. And this guitar I bought with me because I knew it would be able to do that kind of Nile Rodgers tight funky thing, and it did it really well. The only things it didn't do so well, well, it's a bit noisy because they're single coils, not much you can do about that, and I was very close to the amp. And it was only really noticeably noisy when I had a lot of distortion on a distortion pedal. The other thing was, of course, you're not going to get the same oomph from a single coil on the bridge as you would a humbucker. So my preference would be to put a humbucker in here. However, I did try that, by the way. I had a pick guard made up by a friend of mine. He put a humbucker in there as well. And it was quite hard to balance the pickups because these are surprisingly high output. And the humbucker ended up being quieter. So I'm not saying you can't do it. It can totally be done, but you've got to fiddle around and get the right humbucker and do your homework. I'd go for something quite high output to match these pickups. Yes, so that was the only thing I'd say. I ended up picking up my PRS for some of the rockier songs because it's got the humbucker in it. And also it was quieter. But tuning stability, it was fantastic. I didn't use the trem much to really put that to the a proper test, but it held its own. I tuned it at the beginning of each set, and I think that was about it. And it was quite hot in there as well, so that would normally affect tuning stability, but this did really well. It sounded great. I got a lot of compliments on my sound and my playing afterwards. So fair play. For that reason, it's paid for itself already, really. Well, not quite. I need to do a few more gigs, but it started to pay for itself. Anyway, if you've got one of these or you're thinking about getting one, feel free to put your comments and suggestions in the comment section. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and found it at all useful, please click like and subscribe. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.